The clip bin in Pro Tools gives us lots of options for how to display the files we're working with. So I've opened a session here. We can tell just from the icons that there are lots of audio clips in here, and there's one MIDI clip. It's just a single note, but it has the MIDI icon on it. And we can tell that there are lots of sample-based files here, and then one clip that's tick-based. So if we look in the triangle that's to the right of the word clips, we can see that we have lots of options here. And let's look at the options for showing. Now, you'll probably always want to see your audio clips and your MIDI clips. Groups in this menu is not the same as groups over here in the lower left. This is where we create track groups like all the background vocals or all the rhythm parts or all the sound effects in a session, and all the tracks are then grouped. This is clip groups, and clip groups are created in the timeline. So I just wanted to point out that difference. So normally you're going to want all these top 8 selected, and there are some keystrokes for this. Notice that Shift-Command-3 is missing because that's the screenshot command on a Mac. So if you want to see the full path of the file, you'll have to scoot this wall out here to see it. So this tells you which drive it's on, which user it's under, all the way down to where the file lives. We normally choose that going into the session. We don't have to see it, but that's how you see it if you need it. So let's turn that guy off again. Full path. Now, one of the best commands in here, in this triangle, I think, is Select All, Shift-Command-A. And right under it is Select Unused. If you've imported a bunch of sound effects that you wound up not using, or maybe lots of voiceover takes or guitar solo takes, whatever you're not using in the timeline, you can select it here. Notice that my elephant pitch shift and my MIDI note are really the only 2 things I was using, so when I did Select Unused, it found anything that's not in the timeline, and then you can decide what to do with it. Usually you want to get rid of what you're not using, and we'll look at options in the next movie about getting rid of things. Now we saw this earlier, but one of the handiest commands in here is Export Clips as Files. So when you select something here, you get a file conversion utility. You can perform file type and sample rate and all kinds of conversions here and send them anywhere. And we saw this put to work in our clock chapter. And then down here at the bottom is the timeline drop order. Let's say that I have all these files selected and I want to drag them to the timeline. When I drag them, will they go top to bottom in available tracks, or will they go left to right in a particular track? While we're here, let's take a look at sorting. I think these are pretty self-explanatory. You can sort by the clip type, that would be the audio versus the MIDI, the name, the length, the start in the parent. If you had rain followed by a thunderclap, followed by a second thunderclap, you could figure out where these started in the parent, which thunderclap you're dealing with. So lots and lots of information here for sorting and showing your files. Also wanted to point out that in this menu, you can rename something. Let me take this dolphin and rename it Bob. And Bob now jumps to the top because it's alphabetical. He's still not being used in the session, but it's just like when you select over here, you can double click and name something. Well, actually, that's a MIDI note. So we set that in our preferences to not jump to the naming dialog box, but actually jump to the MIDI editor. When we double click this guy, we get the name dialog box and we can rename this clip. So also, clicking over here lets you rename the clip. And those are the handiest options for organizing the clip bin so that you can find what you want.